The average American doesn't retire now until 65 years old. And unfortunately, at that point, they only have 12 years of life expectancy left. But not all 12 of those years are going to be healthy and active years, right? Maybe 2, 3, 4 years of that is going to be their health starting to go downhill. So if you'd like to have more time in retirement, if you'd like to fully enjoy the youth of your senior years, then today's video is for you. Okay, if we want to do what 99% of the people don't get a chance to do, then we have to be willing to do what 99% of people are not willing to do. So let's jump in and talk about what that is. I've been a financial advisor now for over 20 years. I've talked to thousands of people about retirement, and I've helped guide hundreds of people successfully into retirement and early retirement. So these are the things that I've seen that work. And it's really like any great sports team, it's really focusing on the fundamentals. And the fundamentals are, number one, you have to save money. Over half of all Americans making over $100,000 a year do not save a dime. So it's not enough to just earn, you have to save. Let's talk about how much we do have to save. When we were growing up, the generation before us generally were telling us, hey, save 10% of what you make, you'll have a fine life in retirement. But you know what? Their retirement looked different than what our retirement's going to look like. Their retirement really had three legs to the foundation of their retirement, right? First, they had the money that they saved, just like you and I. Then they had Social Security, but in their day, Social Security wasn't taxed. In our day, Social Security is likely going to be taxed. Up to 85% now of our Social Security, it can be taxed. And then on top of that, many people had pensions from their companies. You know what? The pensions are gone. The retirement leg of that soul from Social Security has been cut short because of taxes. So we don't have that. So I think we need to save closer to 20% of what we earn. And I know that's aspirational, and I know that's hard to do. I'm going to give you a quick formula, something to think about, something to try out. Hopefully it'll work for you. And that is the 50-30-20 rule. And that is we try to limit our budget on our needs, things like paying our mortgage, paying our utility bill, food, paying for our car, fuel. Try to keep our necessities, our needs, to less than 50% of our after-tax take-home pay. And then 30% or less on our wants. And that's things like going out to eat. It's things like me being able to take this trip in the Northwest on this train. Things like that, just the niceties of life. And then try to budget for 20%. There's two ways to do this. There's the easy way and there's the hard way to get to saving 20%. Let's talk about the hard way first. And most of us just experienced this a couple years ago at the start of the pandemic, when really we were forced to stay in our homes, right? Essentially everything that we were spending, at least for a month, was pretty much just our needs. There were no wants because we couldn't get out of our homes. And so we experienced that. And I know that was painful. It was painful for a lot of us, and certainly was no fun. I enjoy being able to get out and about. So that's the first piece. That's the hard way to do it, which is just, you know, most of us can do anything for 30 days, for 45 days. So you just rip the Band-Aid off and you try working on getting that 20% and seeing if you can sustain it. That's the hard way. The easy way to save 20% is, let's say you're saving 10% now. Every time you get a raise, every time you get a promotion at work, half of that goes to current you, and half of that goes to, I want to retire early you, and which is going to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is. So every time you get incremental money, a raise, a promotion, half to current you and half to future you. That's the easier way, but for most people, that's going to take 5 or 7 years to go from saving 10% to 20%. Okay, so step number one is we have to save. Doesn't matter how much you earn, you have to save. Step number two is we also have to invest. It's not enough to just save the money and park it or put it under our mattress. We need it to grow, and we need it to grow at a rate faster than inflation. If we can do that, then our investments are working harder for us each year. Our purchasing power is increasing each year. So that's the goal. The goal with investing is to beat inflation and have compounding working in your favor. Let me show you how strong the power of compounding can be. Here's a chart that shows how long it takes to grow from $0 to $100,000. Now, in this case, we're assuming that the people are saving $10,000 a year, and they're getting a 7% return on their investments. And you can see to save that first $100,000, it takes a little less than 8 years, and then about a little over 80% of that first $100,000 comes from your hard work, comes from the money that you're putting into the account, and less than 20% comes from the growth of the account. But now I want to look at the other side of this chart, and I want it, same 100,000, but now we're going from 900,000. We've started with a base of 900,000. 900,000 to $1 million. In this case, the roles have been reversed. Over 80% of that money is coming from the growth of your account. Your money is working harder for you than you're working to put money in. And that's what we're trying to do. And you can see in this chart, that happens pretty quickly. I mean, we very quickly get to the point where 50% of the account growth is coming from new money in and 50% is coming from savings. I believe that crossover happens at the 300,000 to 400,000, but it'll be marked in the chart here. So let's jump into rule number 3, which is related to investing, but instead of investing in your portfolio, this is investing in your relationships. I know very few people that are divorced that get to retire in their 50s. It tends to be the #1 destroyer of wealth, really, for both partners. So if you're in a relationship and mea culpa, you see my wedding ring here. I've been married over 30 years, and some of those years have been wonderful, and I have my wife's permission to share this, and some of those years have been rocky. But fortunately for me, my wife and I both decided we're going to invest in this relationship. We're going to make it as strong of a relationship as it can be, and hopefully we can find common ground and live our lives together in such a way that my wife gets to be the best version of herself, and I get to be the best version of myself. But you have to make that commitment, the commitment to invest in the relationship, the time, the effort, and we had to go to therapy, which is expensive. So the money as well. And I know not every relationship can be saved, but if it can be, I think you'll find that it pays huge dividends. Because what's more expensive than paying a therapist $200 an hour? What's more expensive than that? Getting a divorce is more expensive. Again, I know very few divorced people. I do know some, but I know very few divorced people that get to retire early. I'm gonna wrap up this video with a bonus, and this bonus is super important because if you do all of this work, there's 2 things that you have to do. The first one is you have to accept the fact that you've won. You have to actually say, you know what, I've won, and I'm gonna accept the prize. And the prize is early retirement. So be thinking about that, be planning on it ahead of time. Bonus number 2 is, the nice thing about building your net worth, the nice thing about having enough money to retire, is you only have to get wealthy once. Once you've gotten wealthy, quit playing the game. Take no more risk than what you need to achieve your goal. So let's say you decided you needed $1.5 million to retire. When you get there, and that gives you a comfortable retirement, then job number 1 becomes not losing that money. So never forget that. You only have to get wealthy once, and once you get there, then quit playing the game. And on that line, I want you to think about this video here, which I've talked about the savings and the sacrifice that you have to do to get to retiring early, but I also want you to enjoy the journey until you get there. And that's what this video up here is. It's 7 things that I want you to stop doing in your 50s in order to enjoy the journey more. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in that one.